Welcome to the Coach Barnabas podcast. It's time to take a few minutes and leave behind the stuff that drains us and recharge our batteries with some encouragement and insight. Finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Hi, welcome back to Coach Barnabas, episode number 21. I'm Corey. Great to have you with me, and looking forward to this. It's been a couple weeks due to yet another illness that affected my voice and stuff like that. So it's been a couple weeks since the last episode, but really happy to be back with you to share what I hope will be an encouraging message for you. That's why we're here. So jumping right in, I'm first going to highlight this. If you're watching on the YouTube, then you'll be able to see this. If you're listening on something different where it's an audio only format, you're going to miss out on the splendor of this beautiful mess on my hoodie. Some time ago, I had spilled something on it, so I had this, as they say in New England, a wicked stain right down the middle of my hoodie beneath my chin, almost as if I had been eating something and it dripped, almost like that. But certainly that's not how. I honestly don't remember what it was, but unfortunately, some time set in, and by the time I was able to try to take out the stain and rub it out real good and throw it in the wash, it had set. So I love this hoodie, but when I wear it out, I just look like a slob. But I still love it. So I'm wearing it here. But actually, I'm doing it on purpose today. It's kind of an illustration because you'll see as we go. But I did wear this on purpose because I do want to use it as, like I said, an illustration of today's message. And sometimes our lives get stained with events from our past, okay? Or even maybe something that's going on in your life and currently. But a lot of us, we have things from our past which are kind of pivot points, and they affect us and they carry on through our lives. And that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Most often, though, we're talking about things, regrets, things that happened to us, maybe bad decisions we made, bad events. Sometimes they're self-inflicted. We made bad decisions. Sometimes, it happened as to no fault of our own, but just circumstances blew up on us, and, there it is. But it leaves quite a crater when those things do happen. And so that's kind of what I want to focus on. I'm not going to, I don't feel the need to try and, I'm just struggling with English today. I don't need to come up with imagined scenarios. You've got it in your head already. You know the things that have happened in your own life that have maybe dictated certain things in your life you just carry with you, whether it's regrets, or just consequences from things that have happened in your life. Again, sometimes it's from our own mistakes, and sometimes it's just circumstances that happen. And maybe as a result of, you make decisions based on the best information you have at the moment, and things just don't go right. Okay, these things happen as part of life. Sometimes we ignore red flags, and you make a decision based on the best information you have, but maybe you ignored some information that might have helped you avoid, the crater. But it's not about any of that. It's like, here we are now. What do we do? And so you may notice that this episode I call Breaking Through. And that's kind of where I want us to land on the side of, well, this happened. What do I do? And so I just kind of want to take a look at a couple of examples or a couple of things that I hope you can use to kind of catapult you beyond those things that have happened in our lives. Some of us carry them around on a daily basis, and like a scarlet A, a scarlet letter around our neck, and we're just defined by those things. And everybody we see judges us as we pass by, or we're afraid of it. We just think like our lives are forever branded with these events in our lives. And that's just not the case. We think that, or maybe we just think we deserve it, and we're self-condemning, and we just think like, I don't deserve happiness in my life. I don't deserve good things in my life because I messed up over here, or this bad thing happened to me. And it just, I just want to serve as a messenger to you that you don't have to live like that. Much like this stain, okay, there it is. I can't hide it. There's nothing I can do to disguise it. My wife jokes about, we could tie dye the hoodie. And it's like, okay, yeah. Get a pair of scissors and cut it out. Well, then there's a big gaping hole in the middle of it. So, but I was recently watching kind of a brief, it was like a news clip of a musician I happen to really appreciate. He was part of a band we love. And as they were talking to him, he has a studio. He's an artist as well as a musician. He paints and does different things creatively. And he had a quote on his wall. And so I don't want to say this quote and take credit for it. I don't know if it's his own quote. His name is Bo Reinhardt, formerly of the band Need to Breathe, who's our favorite, by the way. And he's gone out, launched out his own solo career and everything. And there was this little news story on him, such as it was. And he, in this news story, talks about how he was a victim of child abuse, sexual abuse as a child, and how it's affected him throughout his life, and how he's since tried to wrestle with those terms that happened in his life and still make something positive out of his life. And a lot of people, when something bad happens to them, especially as a child, maybe turn to a life of drugs and crime and prostitution and deviant behavior of some kind. And other people, while wrestling with the same trauma, try to do something positive with it and try to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to use my experience and try to help others through it. Or they process it through, in this guy's case, through art, whether it's painting or sculpting or music. That his music tells a story of hope and encouragement and processing things. But there's a quote on his wall, and I want to bring it to you because I found it to be very profound. And it said, "We're not defined. Our darkness doesn't define us, but we can't be defined without it." Okay, and I thought this was a very important distinction. And I think many people feel defined by the darkness of their lives, whether, again, it's something you're going through currently or something from your past. And we feel like we are inextricably linked with it, and that's just who we are. But this is the danger of it. Now, the second half of that quote is the key I want to zero in on. We can't be defined without it. And just like his story of being abused as a child, that's part of his story. That's part of the mosaic of his life. And how it affected his life is he's using it as, how can I do something positive with this? How can I impact lives of other people who have gone through the same thing to help them get through it? And that's kind of, and that's really, where we are. And I had a dream the other night, very weird dream, as dreams often tend to be. And it was something of a parable, to be honest with you, because I woke up remembering it and kind of dissecting a little bit. And there's some of it just kind of a mystery, but I don't even care about that. Let me tell you a little bit about the dream. In this dream, I was married, but the character, let's just say the dream character who portrayed my wife, wasn't actually my wife. It wasn't Sarah. She was kind of a composite of just different people. And she didn't resemble anybody I know in my life. She wasn't like, somebody familiar from my past. It was like a completely different person. In fact, she probably was faceless. I don't remember anything physically characterizing her appearance or anything like that. But that was it as far as the dream scenario was concerned. She was my wife. And she had come to me and said, I was all happy. Everything was good. No indication that something was bad. And she said she needed to break off our relationship. She needed to just get away from me once and for all. It was over. And I didn't see it coming. And I was like, well, what in the world? And I don't remember the details as to why, but I think she had moved on and she had fallen in love with somebody else and just wanted to live a different life from that point on. And so of course I was devastated. I'm sad. And for whatever reason, these people materialized in my life who were from a different ethnic background. And I'm being vague about it. In the dream, it was specific. I'm being vague about it because it's not important what ethnicity they were. the key, the parable part of this is that these people represented a foreign culture. Okay, they were not the same as me from a cultural standpoint, from a belief background, and so forth. And so what they encouraged me to do was, you know what, you're hurting. Let's go to a bar somewhere and let's just, drink until you can't remember, you can't feel, and that'll help you. And of course, I turned it down because that nothing about that sounds productive, positive. It's not who I am, and honestly, and they kept like, well, try this, do this, do this, and I was turning them down at every offer because no, that's not only going to compound the problem, not actually make anything better. It may temporarily mask it. But then at the end of the day, or when you wake up, you're sick, or other consequences come from those decisions, and now you've just compounded your problem, and it did nothing positive. And I woke up, and like I said, I kind of remembered it, and I just kind of unpacked it a little bit, and I really felt like God had given me that dream, essentially for this purpose, for this episode of the podcast. Is to say that, sometimes we do these things. We self-medicate, as it's called, to try and mask, hide, overwhelm, numb our emotions, our feelings, and to help us get through things. But it really doesn't. That's not at all what it does, truly. And I remember saying in the dream to these people that the only way to get through it is to go through it. I needed to go through it. And that stuck with me too. And I felt that, and I still feel that. And that's kind of why I'm weaving that into this particular episode is sometimes the only way, well, frankly, about the only way you can get through things is to go through them. Unless God somehow drills a little wormhole through the situation, which is rare, but it can happen. Who's to say? But most often we just have to go through the storms of life. We have to go through the difficulties in order to get to the other side. And it's awful, and it's uncomfortable, and it feels like it takes forever. But once you get through it, you get through it. You get on the other side of it at some point. And that's where your character is built. That's where strength comes from, especially if you deal with it properly and not try to mask it or disguise it or bury it under something else, which is really not productive and not healthy. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you, and also think of in chapter 32 of Genesis when Jacob wrestles with a man all through the night because he wants a blessing from God, and he's not going to release this other guy until he receives a blessing from God. And as a result, the person he's wrestling with touches his hip. Basically God touches his hip and gives him a limp. It displaces his hip, and he permanently walks with a limp. And that limp was basically a reminder, visually, and just he had to live with a reminder, excuse me, of being persistent and not relenting, not giving up until he received what he needed from God, what he truly wanted and needed from God. And that it may sound like a harsh reminder, a limp, that's inconvenient, may even be painful. But it served as a reminder to himself, or in some cases, like I'm wearing a hat, right? It says faith on it. And I've had people ask me about, what is that? It looks like a sports hat. It's like, what is that about some team? It's like, well, in a way, yeah. I'm a Christian, and faith is very important to me. And the shamrock on the hat, the origins of it is it represents the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So, sometimes we have things in our lives, whether we wear them for people to read or they could just observe in our lives, that create conversation or questions. And we can say, yeah, well, how did you, or like this splint I have on my pinky, how'd you do that? And maybe I'll tell you that story sometime in the future, but not now. So we all have stories to tell that people, may ask the initiating question. And so sometimes God allows things in our lives that other people can see, but ultimately it's to bring him glory. Okay. that God saw us through a difficult period. God saw us through it, gave us strength, and we didn't end up in the bottom of a whiskey bottle or something like that, or we don't have to have a criminal record because we went down this dark, self-destructive path. Now, if people do that, that doesn't make you beyond redemption. Okay, you can be redeemed even when you've made those mistakes in your lives. You can have those regrets. You can say, "Man, I did all the wrong things," but because of Jesus, that's behind me, and I learned from this. And don't do what I did. Or if you did do what I did, there's a way out. There's hope. So that's what I wanted this episode to focus on. Is no matter where you are in this timeline, whether it's way in your past, but it still affects you, it still haunts you, or whether it's something you're currently enduring, my message is to break through it. And the only way to get through it is to go through it. So keep trudging on. If there's some way I can be an encouragement to you, please feel free to leave a comment, message me. Love to just give you encouragement. And remember, encouragement isn't to be confused with flattery. Hey, you're doing great. You're awesome. Though that can be encouraging, but sometimes encouragement is just bringing to you a word, a message that wraps you, envelops you, and lifts you up with courage that you've got this. You stay strong in Him. Here's a Bible verse. Here's a song that you should really, listen and sing in your head and your heart over and over again. And just trust that people are beside you, walking with you, that God is walking with you and beside you. And no matter what you're going through, you are not alone. No matter how it feels, no matter how much you try to isolate the world from it and shut them all out, that God knows He's with you. You can't shut the door on Him, okay? In that sense, it's like all you have to do is just reach out, and He's easily accessible to you, okay? But it's just up to you to receive that invitation. So I just want to encourage you in that. And that's the message for today. All right? So cue Nigel and the banjo. Thank you so much for joining me. I want you to remember, be encouraged and be an encourager. All right? Thanks so much. Look forward to talking again very soon. Take care.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.